Welcome, Piotr. It was very nice, a long introduction given by
Very long.
Hayden already. Very long. Okay, so Piotr, as you know, this is the final session of the India International Vehicle Recycling Summit 2021. Though this is the last, but I think this is one of the most exciting sessions that we are looking at. In this session, we are going to discuss and know more about the worldwide approach to vehicle recycling industry. So here I request you, Piotr, to start with your presentation first, and then we take up the question and answer session.
And good afternoon, everyone. I hope everybody is fine among you and your families. I follow the situation also in India, and I know it's difficult. I just hope that everything will be soon better, and we can meet also either in India or in Europe or everywhere in the world to continue those discussions and so that we can all thrive together. But we still have some issues to solve. They continue to be a challenge, and notably here is the circular economy or lack of it in certain sectors. I will make now the full screen here. I hope it works. Yeah, good.
Yes, it is
So
working.
my name is, thank you. Yeah, it was a very long introduction from Hayden, but yeah, now I work at the EEB, which is a network of NGOs. We've been working over 40 years now, hand in hand with European institutions, European Commission, representing the voices of NGOs in Europe. We are the largest federation of NGOs in Europe, but also beyond Europe, we collaborate with few different actors. And we cover many different topics, but here I represent the EEB circular economy team. We work on resource efficiency, product policies, eco-design, waste management, of course, but also accompanying measures such as EU eco-label, yes, waste prevention measures. We've been working very closely on circular economy action plans of the European Union, one in 2015, and now recently also in 2020, there is a new plan which very much talks about cars as well. But I just want to make a background note here that this new circular economy plan is really looking much forward, let's say, or even, much more upstream in the whole value chains, rather than just looking at how to utilize waste after it's been created. So not at the end of pipe solutions, but really at the beginning of the whole process. And the ways are very simple. It's to empower consumers. And it's not only about educating them, but empowering consumers so that they know precisely what they are going to purchase, so that they can make choices. But this empowering and traceability of information will also make all the producers on the market less prompt to hiding something. Yeah? They will actually start competing between themselves on who creates cleaner products, more sustainable. So we basically, the whole approach of the European Union is making sustainable products a norm rather than an exception than it is today. It's a long goal, but we are getting there, and there is a whole sustainable products initiative that is now being launched and consulted in Europe. So there are a few areas of focus. I will in a second, but just wanted to say also that this approach is, of course, our European legislation, but when we are also putting in place legislation that in the EU market, and this is a single market, only products that are sustainable can be put on the market, even if imported from outside, from India, from China, from United States. All of them have the same level. So we are kind of also nudging other legislations, other producers, other countries, that if they want to export to Europe, they have to follow the same rules. And this way we are trying to upgrade the standards everywhere. Sometimes the standards are already good in other places, so they have a better way to get into the European market. And at political level, the circular economy approach is also embraced by the so-called GACERE, Global Alliance for Circular Economy, that is European Union is also taking the lead together with UNEP and UNIDO. I'm not sure if India is on board, but probably there are some talks about this. We will be continuing on this. There are some sectors, specific sectors that the whole circular economy action plan is focusing on is among them is exactly vehicles. There is a revision of end-of-life vehicles, but there is also a revision of batteries directive, which is very relevant, and few other sectors here. We at the EB, we cover all of those sectors because we follow very much what the Commission is doing, so that we make sure that is the most ambitious way and best for consumers and the whole society as a whole. So now on the revision of end-of-life vehicles directive in Europe. So I joined a few of the sessions on Tuesday and yesterday and today, and I know that there were already some discussions about the European systems. So I take this as for granted that you more or less know the process. The directives have to be transposed in every European member state so that they are equally implemented. And in more than that, the directive will probably change its regulatory status into a regulation, which improves the implementation and it's more harmonized. Also, the control and execution is better. So I will, in this presentation, I will follow, I will give you kind of statements on how we think we need to or on how we need to improve, make vehicles sector much more closer to circular economy through eco design, improving reuse and preparation for reuse conditions, recycling targets and its methodology of calculating it, recycled content, that is a big topic as well, and then how this will be financed. So here through extended producer responsibility, which was also the topic today, harmonized chemicals inventory, and the biggest topic maybe for many is the electric vehicles, batteries. So overall, as we in Europe, we estimate 8 million tons of cars being wasted every year, many of them treated illegally, illegally, yes, or outside Europe, where we don't have any control over what is happening there. So the revision is of the directive that is now over 20 years old, I think. Yeah. Is taking stock of what worked and what not, but also making it fit for next 10 and 20 years, because that's the typical time frame of revisions of these directives. So we need to make sure that it will cover well the future developments of cars and its design and production. So it needs to follow much more the waste hierarchy. You know, the waste management hierarchy from circular economy view. We think that in the sector of cars, it is not being followed at every level, at every stage. We also want to make sure that in this strategy, waste streams should be tackled at source by improving the design. As you know, around 80% of the environmental impact of products can be thought through, considered already at the design desk of a designer. So this is really important that here we are making rules on producers that they follow, so that they improve the whole value chain further downstream for consumers, for recyclers, for repairers. So waste prevention measures are also important. The more durable our products and it's possible to repair, the better for the environment, of course. Okay, so the design principles, it's not only about reducing the overall CO2 emissions of a car use, which is also actually one of our calls in different strategies that we are working on, which will mostly drive electrification of cars, but it's also really designing so that cars are designed for reuse, designed for remanufacturing, refurbishment, repair, and recycling. This will become more important than ever, especially for cars, electric vehicles. We know that the CO2 emissions will shift from use phase, as it is now, it will shift to production phase because of batteries. But now we can look at the whole car, not only at the battery, but also how the chassis is made, how other parts of the car are also made, components, whether they are replaceable, dismantleable, and whether they can be also repaired easily and then recycled in a clean way. Preparation for use is, as you know, the second step after prevention, and it's not reflected systematically in law, in regulation even. So if you are also planning such a regulation in India, I would suggest that we are separating targets for reuse from targets from recycling. Today they are merged together. Therefore, there is a very little incentive to reuse items, components, or cars as a whole. Same for products and for furniture and packaging or whatever. But here in cars, the situation is very clear that there is a lot of potential for reuse, but it's not being incentivized through even the methodology of calculating reuse. So this is a very big important call that can already at governance level be set up. Reuse and preparation for reuse. This is the second part of the same. Basically, okay, here also we say that there is an information that is needed for repairers. Well, repairers have to be also given access to cars. All the clauses that they cannot do repairs should be abolished, according to me. Repair is always better. So if it's done safe, repairers, independent repairers, should be given this. But also they need information. They need manuals. They need international dismantling information system. They need access to all this, and also to repair spare parts, of course. Then, of course, how it is financed. It all costs, especially labor. In Europe, the costs of labor is significantly higher than in India, but still, this needs to be covered, and repairers have to be paid well. So EPR systems, extended producer responsibility systems, that usually cover only end-of-life treatment, so recycling, or they should also be covering to large extent the work of repairers and the spare parts and all the management of information. Now going to recycling targets. There are a few issues with this. In the European legislation, the recycling targets are overall for a whole car. It's easy to achieve those targets if we actually recycle only steel, which is the bulk of the material of the car. But if we are looking at critical materials, critical raw materials, then of course they are lighter in a smaller quantities, so there is no incentive to focus on them. That's why we are calling for specific material recycling targets. So specific, let's say, even for batteries, for lithium, for cobalt, for nickel, even if they are tiny fraction of a whole car, we want to have separate targets for recycling of those critical materials. There is also a recovery target. Recovery is very often misleading as energy recovery or backfilling, which is, of course, not in line with circular economy. So we actually call for not using the word recovery, either reuse, either recycling, and then the rest is not in line with circular economy. Because, as I said, in Europe, at least, I don't know in India, but recovery is often misused by energy, by incineration, or by backfilling as a way to recover somehow, but not material recovery. Recycled content is a big goal of many different sectors: construction, packaging, plastic, but also should be implemented, batteries, and also should be implemented in cars, so that a certain amount of materials used in cars is made from recycled content. Of course, it is happening already today, but it has to happen even more in order to reduce the demand for raw materials, primary raw materials. This target can be staged from in 25, in 30, 35, it can grow from 50, 60, 70% until we achieve 90%, let's say, recycled content, which is, I don't know if it's possible for cars, haven't done this study, but for packaging, it is totally feasible. So it is a way to improve the markets for secondary raw materials. You know that if there will be such a regulatory demand, then the prices of content of quality recycled material will rise. It will give additional money, financing for recyclers, and incentivize for better collection and sorting, rather than shredding to a low quality secondary raw materials. But in this case, we have to be also sure that the secondary raw material content is clean. We don't want to perpetuate to continue toxic substances in cars, which also exist, like such as PVCs. We don't want to extend that into a second life. So the same quality standards should apply as for virgin materials. Very often, the substances of very high concerns are diluted into a threshold that is allowed, and we also want to avoid that. Extended producer responsibility has been discussed today as well. So maybe here I just want to say that the traceability of information is very important, and so that, because we know that cars travel, especially in Europe, cars from Western Europe are often bought secondhand and transported to and sold on the market in the Eastern Europe or South, or even into Africa. So we want that this information is traveling also, and the money. So the EPR, the fees that have been put by producers are traveling also outside the European, maybe even legislative system, and finance recyclers there, and also repairers. Yeah, that's what I said in the beginning. EPR has also this function of looking into prevention. So EPR can be modulated. The fee of the EPR can be modulated according to the environmental performance of a car, in this case. So if producers are making the effort to replace hazardous substances, or to give a longer warranty for the car, and so on, they have to pay less EPR fee. So here we use a natural economic tool to improve the situation, even before the legislative will actually require that or not. So cars are still containing hazardous substances, so there is a need for information flow before we find alternatives, safe alternatives for those. If we still have to use those substances, there must be a very clear information for the end consumers or end users, so recyclers, on where the hazardous substance is located in the car, how to treat it, where to where to dispose it, and stuff like that. Actually, such a inventory list of chemicals already exists for ships in Europe, and is working. So could be extended to cars. Okay, and that's the last almost slide. So because of the move of cars into electric, which is good for CO2, it also brings other challenges. I'm not speaking here only about production challenges, which have to be tackled, but the end-of-life challenges. Many recyclers are not yet ready to deal with this batteries. So we have provided a big position paper here to be downloaded on the revision of batteries directive that is also happening in the same moment as end-of-life vehicles directive revision. We look at eco-design of batteries, second life of batteries, so how batteries can be repurposed from a car later on to be a battery for storage of energy in a car or in an office or in a garage, so that second life is of this material is and incentivized rather than just shredded or dismantled and recycled. So there must be a strict alignment between the ELV directive and battery directive. Standard rules for dismantling. So the dismantling and repair information system, access to battery management system, and also battery passport, digital passport. Actually, this digital passport is an interesting thing because it's also going to be expanded not only to batteries. We in Europe, we are thinking how to make sure that information between consumers, between producers, consumers, and recyclers is better managed. It can be digital information. It's in order to improve the information about the materials, the way of treatment, the manuals to repair, or also the modifications that have been done to a battery. They are all stored in a battery passport or in a product passport, or a car passport. Actually, there's also an idea for a car passport, so that the end user or middle user, let's say, all of them, they are well informed what is contained in the car and what types of modifications the car had during its lifetime. That's the end. I just wanted to tell you that apart from cars and ships, we are also working a lot on waste management. And I invite to contact you to contact me or your contacts, whether you would like to talk more about the solutions for waste management in India. And these are my contact details, Dhanyawad, and we can now discuss a bit if time allows. Thank you. I share my screen. Well, I stop sharing in a second if you just want to take a photo, but maybe the presentations will be shared, which is okay for
Yes,
me.
presentation
Okay.
could be shared. Thank you, Piotr. I think that was wonderful and very informative as well. A lot of ideas that you have shared. You have also, when I was reading about you and your work, Piotr, you had said that the real circular economy means that those circles have to be long, minimized, local, and clean. And by long, you meant long life of products. By minimized is the no superfluous waste. By local, you meant the territorial hierarchy, and by clean, you meant the avoiding the recycling of hazardous substances. Now, before I go to the audience questions, you also did mention in your presentation about the recycling industry not being circular, and as we know, it is just the beginning, and a lot needs to be done here. But what are the ideas, or how do you think it can happen?
How recycling industry can become more circular? Yeah, well, in its DNA, it is circular. It should be circular, but they also recycling industry has to be given conditions that it can move on and upgrade, so that it has to receive clean materials. It has to receive those materials that are well separated and are easy to recycle. In many different sectors, we see that materials are simply difficult to dismantle or to separate. So recyclers is left with a very difficult challenge, either mission impossible, or they have to put a lot of costs, a lot of labor, a lot of material, energy, water, in order to further, or also chemicals, in order to detach the materials. So how this can happen is through this, but also they need financing. So financing is necessary. Instead of financing incinerators, financing needs to go to recyclers so that they improve their recycling technologies. Or they manage, they can employ more staff if needed. So yes, these are incremental changes, but the whole change for all circularity is what you said in the beginning, that those circles have to be slow, thin, clean, and local, so that we don't need to have a car, first of all, and that is the change that is coming also. First of all, we don't need fully recyclable cars if we actually, the first priority can be to avoid car at all, so that the more money is being invested into public transportation. Then also durable cars, so that they don't last 10, 15, 20 years, but they last 50 years, and they are easily repairable, so that the circle is even prolonged and extended. And yeah, so that's it. These are the bigger kind of
Sure.
general.
I think another thing, Piotr, that I wanted to ask was looking at the Indian concern. Emphasis right now is being given on the adoption of EV vehicles, and not just India. Electronic vehicles are being pushed by every single government. And with the electric vehicle adoption, I think the major concern that comes is also the batteries that we were talking about. And so, what I want to know is, from your knowledge, is there any green practice of kind of recycling the batteries, or we are still kind of researching that?
No, of course, recycling facilities already exist. Yes, in Europe we have few of them, like Umicore in Belgium, like Northvolt in Norway, and there are a few more. Tesla is also opening its production and recycling schemes in Europe because they will start producing here. So actually, it is feasible. It is totally possible. There are some details in details. Because there are still lots of different kinds of batteries. Well, for electric vehicles, batteries, rather the amount of batteries is limited. I'm speaking about also different batteries, like for computers, other things. But the technology is also fast developing. We see that in future, cobalt will not be needed in batteries for cars, because it will be replaced by something else. So the recyclers have to be, always researching and together with producers, so that they are sure that before they put on the market something, the technology to recycle it, it's there.
Thank you. I think there are a lot of questions which are again related to circularity, which you have answered, but I think let me reiterate them. The first one says is, what is the first and the most important thing that needs to be done for moving towards a circular economy? Again, I think we can repeat ourselves, Piotr, just for the audience sake. Can we?
Yeah. Yes, sure. So first of foremost, from our EEB perspective and NGO perspective, is that it's not about recycling only. We have, especially in Europe, but it's growing also in India, consumption is increasing. We cannot ban. Think about the consumption as a pipe of materials. It goes one way and it flows the other way. That is linear. Now, with circular economy, we are trying to bend it, but we cannot bend a pipe that is over thick, over, how you say, swollen, that is so huge that you cannot do. So the first of all is reduction of consumption. I'm speaking to Indian colleagues here, where the consumption levels are much lower than in Europe. So it's actually us, Europe, United States. We have to make our homework. You are doing great, and we can learn from you. But if we thinking about 10, 20 years, you are also going there if you continue the same pattern of growth. And I'm not speaking here about the growth that is good, that good growth, meaning of prosperity. But if we couple this growth with material consumption, that's wrong. And India will be very much, depleted also, and in terms of social issues also. So it's a problem. So first of all, your question in the question was that it's about reducing consumption and reduction of consumption of primary raw materials, first of all. And actually in Europe, we are thinking about setting targets for such reduction, legal targets.
I think that helps. Thank you, Piotr. That was a very good question. Answer to the question. Another question that we have is, do you think manual dismantling adds to the circular economy concept rather than absolute shredding of ELVs? If so, is EU also supporting it, and how?
Yes, I do believe that manual dismantling is better if it's safe. Whenever it's safe, it's better. It's more labor consuming, but you can get the components in its shape, in its possibility to be reused. And it's happening whenever it's economically feasible still. But in Europe, indeed, as you marked, the cost of labor are high. And it's very often companies are tempted to just shred everything in once, and then therefore get the bulk material, which is then not so, it's of much lower value. I don't know. One of our concerns and remarks to the EU is that they are not doing enough, indeed. So we will be trying to address these issues in policies.
Sure. Thank you. I think these are all questions. Thank you, Piotr. Thank you. May I request Hayden to take over?